Hello guys, how are all of you beautiful people? Hope all of you are doing fine. And yes, this is a new series. Multiverse of Marvel. When a cinephile and an otaku /weeb travels through dimensions and gets a system which can only be described as overpowered but comes with restrictions. At first he was overjoyed with the system but soon realizes that he is in a very dangerous world where his life was at risk all the time. So without any delay, let's start the video. Sai, an 18-year-old, only child of the family, living in Bengaluru, India. He had just come out of the movie theater with his friends after watching the latest Marvel movie Eternals. Before he had gone for the movie, he was excited because of the fact that after a long time, he watched MCU movie, and as an avid MCU fan he loved it. Despite that, after watching it he felt that the movie needed a more emotional aspect, yet he didn't have any prejudice against the story being an origin movie. Marvel hasn't produced any good origin movies recently except for Shang-Chi, which was debatable. Eternals could have been a good one, but it needed more depth. As Sai and his friends headed out laughing and discussing about the movie, they took the path to the nearest restaurant to have dinner. As the movie was a late-night show with his friends, Robin and Akash found their way to a nearby anime-themed restaurant which has been a new addition, as anime or such genre is not so popular locally in the country as opposed to Japan. Man, MCU has finally stepped on the gate of gods, Sai said excitedly. Yes, and I can't wait for Galactus, if they have finally decided that it's time for him. Robin added, being a great fan of Galactus. The anime-themed restaurant had many posters of classic animes such as Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, and even recent anime like Kobayashi Sankai no Maid Dragon posters outside the shop. As they were about to enter the restaurant, they suddenly heard a loud screeching noise. All of the three boys instinctively turned back to see what the noise was about, but what surprised them was the view of a yellow Porsche Cayenne speeding very fast on its way towards their direction. At that moment, maybe it was his instincts, or maybe because Sai was a kind-hearted guy who thought more for others first, pushed the other two boys out of their way to save them. The car rammed Sai in high speed over the pavement and Sai was thrown away towards the restaurant. That glass doors of the restaurant shattered and he was slammed down. Before he could even experience the pain, he saw his vision blurring and cries from the friends and the people nearby. All he could think about before he closed his eyes was that he couldn't bid farewell to his parents, as he already assumed that he was going to die soon. But little did he know that his death will start a storm in the multiverse that nobody could have imagined. New York, 2001. An 11-year-old boy named John woke up from his sleep early in the morning. At first, he felt lightheaded and confused. He saw an extravagant bedroom with a king-sized bed on which he was sleeping. Posters of many newspapers on the walls with clickbaiting headlines can be seen from those newspapers. As the images of the room became clear, he turned his head to the right and saw a family photo beside his bed with the image of a typical Western middle-aged man with black hair and little white sideburns holding the hands of a small boy who had some characteristics of the middle-aged man. What happened? Wasn't I hit by a car? Where am I? Where is Akash and Robin? What is this place? Am I not dead? Did I survive the crash? The boy exclaimed in his head. He was panicking inside because he saw his body had changed and was a young boy. He was pretty sure he died, but he wasn't sure how he ended up in a bedroom with weird articles all around. He sat on the bed and noticed a newspaper on the nearby table. He picked it up and he was dumbstruck after what he just saw. The date on the newspaper's top right side depicted a year which was impossible for him to be present in that year. It was the 1st of October, 2001. But that was not the most astonishing part. What was more surprising was the name of the newspaper. On the heading it was written Daily Bugle. He shuddered because he knew what the name represents, but he couldn't believe it. While he was holding the newspaper, he noticed that his hands and body were significantly smaller for a typical 18-year-old. Did I just get eyes kid to Marvel, or am I just dreaming? If it is really Marvel, which Marvel universe is this? The old Spider-Man universe? Or the MCU? The boy screamed in his heart. He felt his heartbeat racing. In his previous life he had watched the anime That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, so he knew what isekai was. Adding to the fact that he read many Chinese novels of isekai who traveled to many worlds and made their own story. Shit. What if I really got isekai? I should have a system at least, like all the other protagonist travelers in the universe. System. Are you there? He wasn't sure how he got isekai, but he could only scream in his heart, Doctor Strange. Did you mess this up? Ding. The boy suddenly heard a sound in his head. System loading. 10%. 20%. 50%. 89%. 100%. System loaded. The boy was so excited that he almost jumped in his bed. Hello, host John. It has come to our notice that you have traveled to the MCU 19999. Would you like to load the previous memory of the original body? The boy said yes. And then suddenly he was branded with many memories in his head. Information. It turned out that the original owner's name was John Jonah Jameson, son of Joan Jameson and J. Jonah Jameson. His mother died early due to cancer, and his father is the owner of the famous newspaper company Daily Bugle. He turned 11 years old this year. He could only lament on the fact that all the initial letters of his family names start with J. So it's 2001. There is still 7 years to develop myself before Tony Stark makes an announcement in the press conference that he is Iron Man. After that, the trajectory of this world will basically take the route of arithmetic progression. Sigh. What a headache. System. The only function you have isn't just some memories, right? Ding. The host can rest assured that the system is very powerful and can even make the host as powerful as the so-called gods in this universe instantly. All that depends is, in the hands of the host and his hard work. Okay. So what are your functions? The system can make the characters and powers of the animations, movies and games of the host's previous world come to life. And the host can take over the summoned characters as himself whenever he wishes to. What? John screamed out loud this instead of saying it in his heart. He knew what this represents. It represents he will have powers that the world has never seen. But soon the system poured a cold water on his excitement with its next sentence. The host can make the powers and characters and even the whole world depicted in the previous come to life under certain conditions. What are the conditions? The condition is reaching the desired fan value. For example, the host makes a movie, and if the fan value, that is, the number of people that loved the movie, exceed a certain number, then the characters or the powers can come to life as desired by the host. You said the characters and even the world can come to life. Won't the villainous characters cause havoc after coming to life? John complained in his heart. The host can rest assured that all the characters that the host summons will only take orders from the host and nobody else. What? Ha 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 ha. John laughed in his bed. He lied on the bed, stared at the ceiling of his room and kept on smiling. All he could think was about the world that he was going to spin around once he reached his fan value. He was getting prepared. As now John, was mapping out his scheme, the door of the bedroom was suddenly flung open and a woman who looked like she was in mid-30s walked through the door. She looked quite beautiful and had the characteristics of a South American living in the USA. From John's memories he knew she is his nanny, Valentina. She was hired after his birth. She basically saw him grow up from an infant and love him equally like her own son. After John's birth and death of his mother, Valentina looked after him for all his needs. After his mother's death his father flung himself to work to forget the pain of loss and John was handed over under the care of Valentina. "John, are you all right? I heard you screaming. Is this one of your nightmares again?" Valentina asked him worriedly after coming inside. No Val, I am fine. Just had an exciting dream about something which is going to turn into reality soon. This world is so beautiful," John said with grin. "Val, that's the name he calls her by normally." Valentina was confused by what he meant but she didn't care. It was 8 in the morning. "Your dad is waiting for you at the breakfast table for you. You should go," Val continued. "Yes, I have lots of things to tell him," John said. Even though he wasn't close to him but being his dad he has some understandings. "Hi Dad." "Good morning," John said after coming to the table. His dad was having his breakfast which had eggs and sandwich. John realized that due to the merge of memories from the previous self, his accent was a perfect American. It helped him avoid the change of accent from his previous self. Though he couldn't figure out how his consciousness took over the previous owner but he guessed it is probably because of the system which helped him take over the body without any particular hindrance. While joining his father for breakfast he was thinking of the system and how to propagate the works of animation and movies to the world to acquire the fan value. As for games it can be shelved for later period of time as the technology of 2001 won't allow him to show his ideas on the games. Even though John played many games in his previous life he wasn't a gaming nerd and has very less ideas about games. Val served him his breakfast and while eating he started formulating ideas for his future plans and action and how to gain a foothold in this new world. "Dad, I have a business proposal. Would you like to hear me?" John asked his father. "Business proposal? What kind of proposal? A kid of your age has business ideas that you want to share with me." "Well, that's a nice joke," Jameson said with a hint of sarcasm as he was pretty sure a kid like John wouldn't have any good ideas that can influence him. "You will be surprised, Dad. Don't worry. In a few days I will give you a story with avid drawings. If the story and drawing is good, promise me that you will help me make an animated movie," John said with confidence. Jameson was surprised by what he just said. He looked at his son and felt odd. It was as if there has been a change in his attitude but he didn't give much thoughts to it. "You kid even know how to draw? I have never seen you take drawing classes. And what kind of story a kid like you is going to create? That will be a surprise for you. Trust me Dad, I can draw and you will see it soon. Just promise me that if you like the story you will help me make an animated movie," John said. "I don't have that much money to sponsor your such weird fantasies, kid," Jameson said. "Dad, please. I know you have such a huge company and you also have connections of Hollywood. Just this once introduce the story to a producer and a director," John pleaded. Jameson looked at his son and said, "Okay fine kid, if you can create some good drawings and a good story, I will consider. The truth was, Jameson couldn't help but feel a pit of guilt in his heart every time he looked at his kid. He couldn't take care of him much when he was little, but recently he couldn't help but feel like he should do something before it was too late. Letting out a deep sigh, he knew that no matter what his son came up with, he would at least give it a try. Maybe this would help make up for how things were just a little bit. Besides, it's not like it would do anything harmful, and he deserved a bit of creative freedom. After finishing the breakfast, he got ready for school, and his father, who was already in his iconic suit, left for work after saying his farewells to his son and Val. John now has a lot of work to do in the upcoming days, and he already has a plan in his head. Since he is 11 years old, he has just enrolled into the middle school. As soon as he left home, he could see tall buildings and wide streets with cars everywhere. In his previous life, he had always wanted to come to New York and travel around the world, and now if he can become powerful enough, let alone traveling the world, he can travel to the far-reaching universe. The weather outside was quite pleasant, and it felt like he was back in his old city. But he knew that New York even receives snow, and his old city of Bengaluru never had such luck in this regard. He really thanked the gods for giving him another chance with life and looking forward to what the future holds for him. Lower Manhattan Community Middle School, that was the name of the school that John was attending. He lived in Manhattan, so the school was pretty nearby. It was among one of the prestigious schools in the city. At school he met his friend Jeremy, whom he had met recently and sat by his side in the class. He remembered him from the actual memory of owner of the body. Since they had met only recently, they weren't so close, but it was fine by John as he has lots of other plans, and wasting his time with the kids was just going to bore him out. Even though physically he was 11 years old, mentally he was 18 years old, and he was pretty sure the class lectures for 11-year-old kids would just be very boring. So all he did during the class hours was not pay attention to the class, and eventually he was bored as his knowledge was way ahead of his age. He had already started making plans meticulously in his mind and took required notes that he needed to take up in the upcoming years. On the way back home, he bought big canvases and art materials from his pocket money. In his previous life, he was a very good artist and a decent singer. In fact, he could even copy the manga drawing in his previous life. So he was confident that he could draw pretty good relying on his previous life. After coming back home, he went directly to the computer. The computers of 2001 were a little old for his taste, but he didn't care much and started searching if there is any company named Disney. John soon found out that there is no such company, and he then put his mind to rest. Then suddenly John's eyes sparkled. Since there is no Disney in this world, I can bring all the works of Disney of my world to life here. He thought to himself. System, can you use the fan values generated from one work and then transfer to another work? Ding. The host can be rest assured. The number of fan values are calculated in total and not individually. That's awesome. I can directly use all the Disney works that I remember. Well, it's sad that I can't remember all the Disney animations from my previous life. Ding. The host can bring previous life's animation, games, movies and animes to this life at the expense of fan values. Really? That's awesome. Many of my concerns can be waved away by this. Okay, now it's time to get to work. After sitting down with the canvas, he started drawing a beautiful sunrise and many animals. After drawing the animals and showing that they were traveling to a particular direction, he drew a majestic lion. Yes. John is drawing the famous Lion King. Even though The Lion King came in 1994 in his previous life, there was no such movie in this world. He was pretty sure that with all the music he remembered from his previous life and with the advancement of animation, the movie would be more majestic now in 2001. As for his dad rejecting his work, he never considered it because John was pretty sure that his dad will support him on this, as the story itself is particularly rich and vivid and it will call to all the audiences, be it both a child or an adult. He knew that this drawing will take lots of time, but he was excited to complete it. At night when Jameson came back from work, he noticed that his son John was busy in his room as opposed to coming forward and greeting him. He went to his son's study only to see him drawing diligently. When he came forward to see what he was drawing, he was astonished to see that there were many beautiful drawings made in the way of comics, but it looked more vivid and real. He didn't want to disturb his son in his work. Soon he remembered the conversation he had with him in the morning. Now, after looking at the drawing, Jameson was looking forward to the story he was going to produce with the arts. "Val, since when has he been working?" Jameson called Valentina over and asked. "Mister, he has been working like this since he came back from school. He did nothing else and is cooped up in his room." She was worried that he will work too hard in this small project of his and miss the time to play and have fun. Jameson, on the other hand, was proud of his son after seeing his art. Even if he doesn't come up with a good story, he can boast about his son's extraordinary talent of art to his old colleagues. Now he was only waiting for John to complete his work of art. The 9th of October, 2001. It took 15 days to finish all the drawings in pages and writing the conversations between all the characters. Even though it lacked vividness in the drawing, but it looked awesome nonetheless. At night when John's father came back from work, John took the whole bunch of drawings to Jameson to evaluate. Even though John knew his work was near perfect to the story of Lion King of his previous life, he was scared. Scared for the fact that he wouldn't be able to convince his father. "This is astonishing. John, you really surprised me. At first I was proud of your arts and your diligence. And now I am in awe with your work and creativity." Jameson praised him without holding back after going through the whole set. John became shy as he knew there is nothing creative he did, as all his works are by riding the shoulders of his predecessors. "So Dad, can you help me make an animation movie out of it?" John asked him with eagerness, as all his work and his future depends at that moment. "Sure. Why not? This work is fantastic. And I have a hunch this will generate great money," Jameson said with sparkles in his yes. Even though Jameson had enough money, nobody would say no to some more money. "Dad, before everything starts, I would like to meet the director of the movie. You can be one of the producers too. You can keep the money for later uses, as I have other needs for the money," John said. "Sure. But do you have other ideas such as this?" Jameson asked with some suspicion. "Dad, I have so many ideas and things to do, but it will take time to bring all these ideas into reality. This world is more colorful and dangerous than you think," John said to his father with a hint of a smile in his face. Even though Jameson isn't really his father in a sense, but he could feel his father's love for him in the past few days. "Kid, just because you just drew a story, don't think you can ride my head. I know more about the world than you," Jameson said with some mock anger on his face. John shrugged his shoulders, refusing to argue on this topic, as he himself knew that 18 years of mental age doesn't really count to anything in this vast world. The 14th of October, 2001. It was a nice Sunday evening when John and Jameson walked into their scheduled meeting with the director. Jameson decided to tag along to oversee the meeting too. He trusted his son, but he was still a kid. A bit nervous at first, when the clock pointed 6 p.m. they finally headed in to get things started. This is the original drawing for the animated movie, and I would like if the animation would be realistic and please pay proper attention to the emotions to be involved in the whole story. John said to the director. Don't worry, John and Mr. Jameson. We are professionals and we will give our full effort in this project. Rob, the director, said excitedly. At first, when he heard that Mr. Jameson, a media tycoon, is looking for directors to shoot an animated movie, he jumped on the bandwagon immediately. He used various channels to have a meeting with Mr. Jameson, and the time was decided today. What surprised him was the fact that the story has already been decided and it was created by Mr. Jameson's 11-year-old son. He was very downhearted on his way to the home of Jameson and was making up excuses in head to reject this project later. But after reading the whole plot and seeing the drawing, he changed his mind immediately. He saw a huge potential in the storyline. Mr. Rob, I have another blatant request. I hope you will accept it. John added. Huh? John, you want anything more to the story? Jameson was skeptical and hoped that adding more would not ruin the story. Don't worry, Dad. It's nothing bad. I just composed songs related to the movie and I am confident that it will add more to the story. John said with a smile. You can compose songs too. When did you learn that? Kid, what more secrets are you hiding from me? Spill it out. Jameson asked him with raised eyebrows. John just replied with a smile. Rob, on the other hand, was little worried because he felt John was too small to compose music. John could see the director's worry, so he said hurriedly, Don't worry, Mr. Rob, I will just give the lyrics and add my ideas for the song. I won't be hampering on the movie's original work. Rob was grateful for this, and after discussing all the ins and outs of the matter, left late at night. The production process was set to start and it was going to take time to finish the whole movie. The 22nd of March, 2002. The past few months went in like a storm for John. With all the running from school to the movie director and the music director, day in and day out was exhausting for an 11-year-old kid. Even though he was mentally older, at the end of the day it was the body which had to do the physical work. After months of hard work and some help, using the proper sound, background score, music and voice for the movie, the production finally ended on the 22nd of March, 2002. John was excited for the movie to be released, as he knew that after its release he will finally gain some foothold in this world. Even though that would only mean in terms of money, it was still good for John. Didn't Tony Stark always flex on the fact that he is handsomely rich? Didn't T'Challa, King of Wakanda, flex on the fact that he is outrageously rich in comics? Even though his money won't really matter in the grand scheme of events, but it will still be a start, and he had enough ideas of what to do with the money. On the 1st of June the movie was finally released after going through lots of post-production process. The director, Rob, was very happy with all the work. He gave his 100% to the movie and John had helped a lot in this regard. At first, when he used to join him to see the movie production, he was skeptical as he felt that a kid shouldn't indulge in works of elder people, but pretty soon he was proven wrong. He soon realized that his inputs were extremely helpful. Especially during the post-production process when the final cut was being made, his input was almost equivalent to gold. At some point Rob even felt that John had already watched the movie before and was directing the work like a prophet, but he knew this thought was hilarious. John would be astonished if he could read Rob's thoughts. Jameson would join in the production process whenever he had time but never interfered in any process, as he knew that movie making is for professionals and not an old cot like him. As there were no proper internet and communication, the movie couldn't be publicized globally like the movies in the 2020s. Jameson still made sure that there was enough publicity in the States. On the night of the 1st of June, all bigwigs came to the premiere of the movie in LA, as that is the home of the Hollywood. It was also John's first time outside the city of New York, and Jameson made sure that prominent Hollywood people joined for the movie. Being a media tycoon, he had a strong partnership with the people of the media company. John also invited his friends from school for the movie. Even though he has had very less interactions with them, he had not forgotten them. Many people were surprised by the fact that the story and many other works had the hand of John. They looked at Jameson to confirm if this was really true. After knowing this fact, many people had weird looks on their faces and were instantly skeptical about the movie, but still didn't think much on it. John knew instantly that not many people were positive about it, but it didn't matter to him at that point. He just wanted to end it soon so that his plans could be set in motion. In the movie theater there was a podium where he could speak out before the start of the movie. "Hello everyone. At this point many of you know who I am. Thanks to my dad," John said with a laugh. Hearing him, the audience also gave out small laughter. "But I want to leave my name in this world not by being the son of J. Jonah Jameson, but as John Jameson. I know it sounds ambitious for my age, but I still want to try my best to achieve success. And today being my birthday, I would like to take my first step towards my dream. I have come this far with the help of many people, and I hope you all will continue to help me, and I will return your goodwill to you in many folds. Thanks to all for taking this journey with me, and I look forward to cooperating with you all for many years to come. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Lion King." John got a standing ovation for his speech, as what he said was way too mature for a kid of 12 years old, and he already had grand plans to set in motion. Soon the movie started, and unsurprisingly it moved everybody with its storyline, music, sound and depiction. The animation was much better than the 1994 original version, so the movie was more vivid and colorful. Soon after the movie ended, people started discussing among themselves about the movie, and in a few weeks the movie exploded globally. The turnover was unprecedented. The initial budget of the movie was $45 million, with his father investing almost $30 million in it. By the end of July, the global turnover reached almost $1.8 billion. This reaction from the general audience surprised even John. As far as John remembered, the total turnover of the 1994 movie was little over $1.2 billion. But John forgot the fact that in 1994 there weren't many movie lovers as were in 2002. This helped him a lot. After such global success, many people started discussing on the fact that The Lion King might get Oscar this year as the best animated movie, and even awards for the best background music and other such related categories. Now by the end of October, Jameson realized he was sitting on a golden egg, because he had already earned more than $1 billion, and that too by not having done anything. It was also because of the fact that John gave him ideas to commercialize by using toys, merchandise and other stuffs, and that helped him earn more money. Jameson really thanked the stars for such a wonderful son. His ideas were so impressive that it even shocked him. He was so happy that he even smiled when asleep. The only person who wasn't happy at home was Valentina, because she noticed that dealing with all this stuff had hampered the studies of John and his everyday life. He hardly went to school, and he was able to sneak away from the authorities of school just because of the fact that he was the top student in his class, and also because he had produced such an awesome movie that even the school felt proud. The school felt so proud of John that at their school gate they put up a huge banner saying, "The school which produced the Lion King." Although it was blatantly wrong, as the school had nothing to do with his success, but at least they gave him free rein of not attending school. John even told the principal that he would be producing more movies such as this, and in future he would be constantly absent. The principal agreed upon, as long as he achieved excellence in his studies and work hard to get into a good high school. Though he wasn't sure about how tough the exam would be, but he was confident at his knowledge about science from his previous life, as John in his previous life too was excellent in studies. Furthermore, John in this life really didn't have any thirst for science, as he would prefer magic over science. The science stuff could be left to Tony for research. Ding. The fan value acquired by the host is 102 million. Fan value required to bring the character Simba to life, 1 million. Fan value to change the host to Simba, 500,000. This change will entirely depend on the wish of the host and can interchange between Simba and the main body. Fan value required for the character Timon, 250,000. Fan value to change the host to Timon, 125,000. Fan value for the character Zazu, 400,000. Fan value to change the host to character Zazu, 200,000. Urging the host to work hard. Wow, so much fan value from a simple movie. Well, I guess I should save the fan value, as the movies I have in mind for the future aren't so good and the fan values would be required for future purposes. Well, at least I can try this character Zazu and fulfill my wish to fly. System, I would like to change myself to Zazu. John said in his heart. Ding. The command has been accepted. Remaining fan value, 101,800,000. As soon as the statement ended, he soon realized that in his mind there is one small ball. It astonished him, as before this he could never see inside his consciousness, and it felt magical. The small ball had the markings of a hornbill bird, and as soon as he tried to touch the ball he realized that he had turned into a bird in real life. A majestic hornbill with big wingspans appeared in his place, and he could feel that he could fly. After seeing this he couldn't stop himself. It had been almost a year that he had been in this world and finally got the fruits of the labor. He flew out from the open window in the room without any difficulty. He flew out of the home, which was in Manhattan, and flew over the top of the buildings. Even though there was wind in the topmost part, it didn't stop him, as he felt free for the first time in his life. This freedom gave him joy and eagerness to make all his previous dreams come true. He even got to see the famous Stark Tower from far, but he didn't go too close as he wasn't sure if Jarvis is already online. If he was, then it would be a headache. So he returned home after a few minutes. The 28th of November, 2002. It was Thanksgiving Day. John and Jameson were supposed to have a sumptuous dinner at home. But John insisted on going to California on this day. Jameson and Valentina accepted his insistence and took John to California. John came to California only for one purpose, and that is to buy companies. Even though John didn't say anything to his father, but he did ask him to contact a local business lawyer so that he could make contracts easily and fast. After landing in San Francisco, they went to Silicon Valley. After coming into this world, John wasn't sure of what happened, but he soon realized that the internet has not evolved as the same as in his world. Even though there is Google in this world, but it hadn't evolved the way it should have. Well, it didn't matter as there was the company of Google in Silicon Valley and he could inject some ideas onto Larry Page, the current CEO of Google. After coming to the office, which by the standards of Silicon Valley was a small one, he had already asked the lawyers before to arrange up a meeting with Larry in the afternoon. J. Jonah Jameson, John, Larry and the lawyer sat in the meeting room sipping coffee. Mr. Jameson, it is my honor to meet you and Mr. John, the avid creator of The Lion King. Larry said, smiling. Has the story of me being the creator reached here too? I don't think I have done such a huge work to gather the praise of an IT company's CEO. John replied. You must be joking, Mr. John. Even though your career path doesn't coincide the path of our company, but just the fact that you could create such an awesome masterpiece with such high imagination, you Mr. John is worthy of respect. Larry said. Thank you Mr. Page, but you do forget that I am just an 12-year-old kid. John said. Well, if you want to be a big company like the other IT companies here, then I can take your companies to new heights. The heights that even you can't imagine in your life. John added with a smirk. Now it was the turn of Jameson and Larry's expression to change. Jameson felt surprised because he knew this smile of John. It meant he had a wonderful idea and it might bring a huge change, and Larry was surprised that John could even say such thing because he felt that a kid of 12-year-old shouldn't know much of IT even if he is famous all over the world. All Larry cared about is if Jameson could invest money in his company and help the company become bigger. Mr. Larry, I have a proposal for you. I would buy your company's 70% stock and inject an amount of $200 million based on the fact that you will follow my ideas and execute it accordingly. John said with solemnness. Jameson and Larry were again astonished by this statement because Jameson felt that such a small company shouldn't be evaluated so highly, and Larry felt that it was like an angel serving him a golden platter. Even though Larry wasn't sure of why John came to him with such extravagant proposals. As long as he could get the money and do nothing illegal, he would be fine with it, even if the ideas proposed by John were total bogus. But Mr. John, why did you come to me? We are just a small website creators and don't have such high value. Larry asked hesitatingly. Because Mr. Larry, in this whole world only you have the knowledge to execute my ideas. Don't get astonished, Mr. Larry. This is the truth. I have a bunch of ideas in my head and only your company can execute it efficiently. But I wish to settle the contract before we further advance into the negotiation. John said. After much thought, Larry asked to excuse himself as he had to ask the co-owners of the company. After about half an hour of discussion while John and the others took a walk around the office, they came to the meeting room again. Mr. Jameson, we would like to accept the proposal of Mr. John. I hope it would be possible. Larry said as he knew the last word in this whole negotiation were the words of Jameson. Jameson looked at John, who was smiling at him. He shook his head in reluctance and said, Sure, Mr. Larry. Shall we sign the contracts? The contracts were drawn upon and soon all the required procedures were processed. It was said that the whole process could take quite a few days and John had no idea of the company's ownership. It was better to leave it to his father. After the contracts were drawn open, John asked for privacy with Larry as he didn't wanted his ideas to leak outside the company. Larry understood this and made sure there weren't any hidden recordings or cameras. John then drew his ideas on the page with the most basic idea of using a search engine and showed how the engines should work. Even though John doesn't understand all the codes and various things required for the search engine, he could generally point it out to him. Larry, being an experienced guy, understood the main points instantly and probably got an inspiration because the other version of him in another universe had already made a technological giant out of a search engine. John also spoke about the introduction of YouTube, but he warned them not to introduce it early. At least till the point where Google has a strong platform and then they can work on other assignments. Larry was very grateful to John for sharing his ideas, as he could already envision of what his ideas was going to bring in this world. It was night by the time the whole process was done. All three of them went to a presidential suite of a 5-star hotel. Valentina went to order food as it was traditional for the Thanksgiving Day. John and the rest were tired after all the traveling the entire day, and after having a sumptuous dinner and thanking the gods, they all went to sleep, with John sleeping by his father's side for the first time. Even though it felt weird to sleep with someone else, John was too tired to care about, as it was his father's request. The next morning, the Jameson family took a flight to Massachusetts, as he had another appointment with another famous guy on another universe. The 29th of November, 2002. Being the morning just after the Thanksgiving dinner, it was lazy, with many people sleeping in their dormitories. But among them a young guy named Mark was eagerly waiting in a cafe shop outside the Harvard University. Soon two people walked into the cafe and sat beside Mark while greeting each other. "Hello, Mr. Jameson and Mr. John. To what do I owe the pleasure to meet you all?" Mark asked with a huge grin. John was looking at him from head to toe and trying to figure out if Mark was an alien, because there was an ongoing meme in his previous life which said that Mark was an alien as he looked weird. Well, John couldn't figure out if it was true or not, and it won't matter to him even if he were an alien. Yes. The Mark. Here is the famous Mark Zuckerberg of his original world. "Mr. Mark, we are here to propose business to you. Are you interested in hearing us out?" John said as Jameson was sipping his coffee. Truth to be said, he was pretty angry at that point. His son was flying him across countries and proposing business terms with young kids, and he couldn't even get rest in his short vacation. "I shouldn't have taken this small vacation. What a headache with this kid," Jameson lamented in his heart. Jameson even thought about rejecting his requests, but then he remembered John's ideas of search engine and YouTube. John even told him about the use of cloud computing that could be used in the future. Just these ideas alone shook his world, as he knew what a search engine could do to this world and the idea of YouTube and cloud computing. At times he wondered if John was really his child or an illegitimate child of Tony Stark, because only Tony could come up with such weird and fantastic ideas. "Mr. Zuckerberg, I would like to help you create a social media platform like Napster, but on a much broader and larger scale. I will be happily investing an amount of $100 million while acquiring an ownership of 70% stocks of the company that we are about to create," John said with a smile. Mark just froze on the spot after hearing $100 million. That was a huge amount of money for Mark at that point of his life, and he just shuddered thinking about it. After few seconds he calmed down. "Mr. John, are you sure you are asking this to the right person? I am just a student and I don't even have a company," Mark replied. "Mr. Mark, I am here with the right person. You don't have to worry about that. I just want your assurance of hard work, otherwise I wouldn't mind firing you away from the company later," John said with a smirk. "Fine, Mr. John, if you are so much confident, it would be very rude not to deliver to your trust. I would like to know about this so-called social media site that can be bigger than Napster." Since Mark was a single guy, the contract negotiations were easier, and he also advised him to take the help of his friends while making the website for Facebook, as he would need it. It's still 1 year before the official Facebook to launch. But John just wanted to kickstart the whole process. Also, John asked his father to acquire all the remaining stocks for Amazon, as that too would be a very big company later. In 2002, Amazon was just taking its baby steps and many people would be happy to sell their stocks. Of course, it should be done very silently, otherwise the market price will fluctuate because of it. Jameson assured to John that he would do it as he was using the money from the turnover of The Lion King. John knew that these small moves of him would solidify his position politically in the future, so that no government could even think of toppling his empire later, as they tried to do so with Tony in his previous universe. Tony had support of S.H.I.E.L.D. but had no one to rely on. He could only rely on himself and his prophetic knowledge. By the 1st of December, all three returned to Manhattan, as John had to start working on his new projects. And Jameson too had to return to his work. John, as usual, joined school and worked on new movies such like Toy Story, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast and such other animated movies. Even though he couldn't remember all the movies, he could bring their copies at the expense of fan values from the original world. Beauty and the Beast, copy, 50,000 fan value. Toy Story, copy, 60,000 fan value. John spent a total of 500,000 fan values on all the copies he could remember of Disney animated movies and started working on the drawing. He had a hunch that he needed a massive amount of fan values to bring a whole world to life, especially the world he was aiming for. By January he was ready with another series of arts with all the music required for the new movie Aladdin and Toy Story. He called upon Rob again for directing this animated movie and gave him an idea of how the movie would look like. Rob was instantly excited after hearing the story and was looking forward. Rob assured him that the movie would be complete as soon as possible. Rob came for the meeting with another director as John asked for it. The director was handed over the story of Toy Story. And this time too John said specifically of how to handle the story. Both the directors came out of the home of Jameson with a smiling face, as they knew the stories in their hands would kick up a storm again. Jameson was really worried at this point for his son, as he could see all he cared about were the animated movies. "Son, I think you should take some rest after this. You have worked hard the past month," Jameson said with a heavy heart. He hoped his son wouldn't become a workaholic like himself and give less time to his family. Jameson always blamed himself for not noticing the cancer of his late wife due to his overwork. By the time he realized, it was already late. John could understand his concerns, but how could he tell him that if doesn't work hard now it would be too late for him in the future and his destiny wouldn't be in his own hands? He could never allow such thing to happen. "Dad, don't worry, it isn't a lifetime work. I just need a strong platform for myself to work upon in future and live life the way I dream upon," John said. He could even see the concern in Val's eyes too, but he couldn't say anything now. Only time would judge of how correct his decisions were now. "Dad, how about starting a new studio company like the ones in Hollywood?" John said after thinking quite a bit of time. "You mean like the Warner Brothers?" Jameson said as he surprised by his idea. "Yes, Dad. We can't always go to other studios for proper management. You can spearhead this whole creation and leave it to proper management for all my upcoming works. I could just direct some artists and animation experts for all my works and my burden will also lessen down," John said sincerely. "That's a good idea. What will you name the company since it's your brainchild?" Jameson asked. "How about the name Disney?" John asked with a smile. "That's it, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. And also tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendation. Thanks for watching. Hello guys, how are all of you beautiful people? Hope all of you are doing fine. And yes, this is the next part of Multiverse of Marvel. When a cinephile and an otaku /weeb travels through dimensions and gets a system which can only be described as overpowered but comes with restrictions. At first he was overjoyed with the system but soon realizes that he is in a very dangerous world where his life was at risk all the time. So without any delay, let's start the video. The 22nd of March, 2003. Today at Union Station in downtown Los Angeles there was huge traffic. All luxurious cars were arriving for the red carpet of Oscars. All well-known stars were arriving for the most famous and prestigious award-winning show. A month ago Jameson received an invitation from the Oscars as their movie was selected in 4 different categories. Jameson was elated and Valentina was proud of John. Soon a luxurious Mercedes car arrived at the Oscars and from there stepped out 3 people. John was dressed up in a black suit and his father Jameson in a fine-fitted grey suit. Valentina refused to come with them in the beginning as she was just a nanny for John, but John forced her to join them for the Oscars. Valentina today dressed up in a very beautiful red dress which Jameson bought for her. She looked shy as this was the first time of her attending such a high-end gathering. John took her hand and led her inside. The reporters were trying to get words out of John as he was the main focal point of the family. John somehow evaded their lenses and was brought inside by the bodyguards. "Dad, see, this is how the reporters work for all the news companies," John complained to his father. Jameson just gave him an ugly smile but didn't refute him as he knew their nature to his bones. Soon the event started with all pomp and grandeur. Among the audience, John was surprised to see Tony Stark. He came with a famous star to the Oscars. Well, the playboy has a long way to go change himself. I hope my butterfly effect doesn't affect his transformation to Iron Man. Otherwise I am pretty sure the Supreme Midge will come after me and throw me away, John thought to himself. As he looked through the audience, he searched if he could find any famous stars from his previous life. He saw another acquaintance and his eyes gleamed. On the other side of the row he saw Kingo, one of the Eternals. Kingo probably came for one of his movies as he was the royalty of Bollywood. His heart was beating fast just by looking at him. He knew what Eternals represent in this world. The Celestials and their soldiers. The Eternals were basically responsible for the advancement of mankind in the beginning phase till the death of all deviants. Well, till the truth came out for them. Kingo could feel that someone was eyeing him, so he moved his head to look and he found out that a kid of 12 to 13 years old was looking at him. He was pretty sure he never met him before, but on those eyes of the kid he could feel that the kid knew him. John gave Kingo a smile and moved his head. Kingo didn't give much heed to the kid, and being an Eternal he had his own arrogance. He would never pay attention to the mortals. Soon the award for Best Animated Movie of the Year came upon. So this year there is probably only one movie that could make top of the list, the host said with a huge smile. Well, if you didn't take your child to watch this movie, then I am sorry to say you are not qualified as a parent, the co-host added with a big laugh. The audience had a laugh after hearing this. Well, there is no suspense in this category for sure. The Best Animated Movie goes to The Lion King. May I please welcome Mr. John to the stage. John stood up and went to the stage with confident steps. After holding the famous Oscar award, he couldn't believe his own destiny. He went from nobody in his previous life to winning an Oscar in this world. After watching the award for few seconds he said, "Hello everyone, almost half a year ago I gave a speech of achieving my dreams with the help of all present at that time, and this time too I will say the same thing. Thank you all for helping me in achieving my dreams, and hope you all will help me on this journey, and I promise you that I will continue to entertain you and bring you joy and happiness. With that being said, here is a glimpse of my future works. Hope you will like it," John said, and immediately the lights of the whole hall went off. And the screen at the other end of the stage lit up. And soon pictures started to roll over on the screen. It was the trailer of Toy Story and Aladdin. It was lifelike and people cheered for the upcoming movie. Even though the works of these movies aren't finished yet, they will be in movie theaters soon. I will again thank my father, Val, the directors, and all of you who have supported me and wished to continue this journey further. Thank you." John completed his speech with that. Jameson and Val were both proud of his works and his hard work. They knew how much work he had put to his ideas. After this, The Lion King won 2 more awards, but this time only Jameson went to receive it. He even gave a speech saying that his son might become richer than him before he turns 18. All laughed at this joke. The ceremony ended with an after-party, and John even talked a little with Tony but didn't say anything for fear of butterfly effect, and kept his distance from Kingo because he felt vulnerable in his presence. The 1st of September, 2003. After the release of 2 animated movies of Aladdin and the Toy Story, people applauded, saying these were one of the best animated movies. In these few months Disney was finally established, and it had the same logo like it had in the previous life of John. John even started searching for Bob Chapek and Kevin Feige to take over the helm of Disney when the time was right. Ding! Total fan value achieved, 150,800,000. Urging the host to work hard. Even though the fan values weren't the same like The Lion King, he was happy about it. He earned a lot from these 2 movies, crossing the mark of $2 billion. Soon he brought some copies at the expense of some fan values. These copies were important for the next phase of his plans. In the morning of the 2nd of September, the family of 3 went to Tokyo. Jameson was surprised when his son asked him to take him to Tokyo. He didn't know what plans he had, but he still supported him on his ventures. On a chilly night of Tokyo, they landed at the airport and went straight for the hotel. Such a long journey was tiring for everybody and they needed rest. On the next morning, John took the family to Studio Piero with a lawyer and a translator, as he would need them during negotiations. Soon they arranged a meeting with the CEO of the studio. The CEO was pretty surprised and excited when he heard the famous creator behind those animated movies was going to meet him, so he cleared his schedule for this meeting. Soon John arrived with his family and headed towards the meeting room. "Hello Michiyuki Hanma-san. It's nice to meet you. Hope we didn't disturb you by arranging such a hasty meeting," John said with a smile. The translator helped him convey his words to Hanma. No, it's our honor to welcome such a famous animation movie creator to our premises. I am just surprised that you would come to our studio," Hanma said. "Well, Mr. Hanma, we are actually here to have a cooperative relationship with your studio, and joining our hands we would like to depict a wonderful story in animation. The reason I chose Japan instead of USA because I believe that the story I have will appeal to Japanese audience more than Americans," John said. Hanma was skeptical to this point. He knew the animation industry in Japan, and it can probably said as the top industry of animation in the whole world. Even though he had his doubts, but he didn't express. I know you have your doubts about this, so let me give you a present. I didn't bring any other presents with, so I can only give you these 10 chapters of manga that I drew by myself. We can discuss the business terms after you read these, John added, and gave him 10 chapters of manga he drew. Hanmo started reading, and the first page was the image of a cliff side of a mountain with image of few faces plastered on the mountain. It looked almost like the famous Mount Rushmore, only in this case the faces were different. He then saw the image of boy with cat-like whiskers on both sides of the cheeks, and he was drawing all kinds of weird faces and signs on the faces of the mountains. Yes, this is the famous story of Naruto. John knew that in order to be on top of the world he needed a strong background. And after much contemplation he chose the story of Naruto because he was afraid of choosing Bleach, as the world of Bleach might coincide with Hell Dimension. He wasn't sure if this world had Mephisto or even the real goddess Death, and the world of One Piece is too complicated and the story didn't even finish, so he chose the world template of Naruto. And he had a hunch that the cost of Bleach and others will be costlier than Naruto. John knew that for bringing the whole world of Naruto to Earth it would start a storm, but he already had a plan from the beginning to fight this in a peaceful way. John also speculated that bringing the whole world would cost him a lot of fan values, but he was ready to pay the price, and no matter how much time it took. Hanmo read through the chapters and he understood that this story had a huge potential. Soon he decided to accept any kind of proposal because he knew that if the story went right it would be world famous. Hanmo believed that John would already have the whole story in his mind, and he trusted his own judgment for the story submitted by John. Mr. John, we would love to negotiate with you for acquiring the rights to make an animation of the story, Hanmo said with sincerity. Sure, Mr. Hanmo, we would love to cooperate. Disney and your studio will cooperate in this regard. Your company will have full freedom to make the animation, and Disney will only be responsible for its publication globally and other merchandise associated with it. 60% of the profits would be for your studio, and this deal would continue even in future animation works. How does that sound? John asked Hanmo. Hanmo was overjoyed when he heard about this. Only a fool would refuse such a lucrative deal. He could already see lots of money coming in with this venture. I would like to add that I will also input some music and songs in this series of animation, and the series will come out seasonal wise as opposed to regular episodes every week. This will keep the audience engaged and refrain ourselves in adding fillers in the animation. If you would like, you can make up your own side story and make it as a movie later. Of course I would also be on the helm of it, as I don't want to ruin its story, John said. He really hated the fillers and weird flashbacks just to fill up the screen time and milk the story further. John always believed that doing this would downgrade the story by a lot. He didn't wanted to smear the legacy of Naruto in this life. At the end it was never about the money, it was about the fan values. He would never negotiate with anyone when it came to fan values. Money was just a way to keep some people away from behind the scenes. The contract was soon drawn up, and John said to Hanmo that he would send all the relevant details, drawings and directions soon, in a few months. This project would take years to finish, and John gave him a deadline until 2007 to finish the whole plot and finish the animation. John also said that they could publish the manga too in the stores of Japan. Hanmo happily agreed, as it would generate more expectations from the animation. He was looking to the bright future and cooperating with Disney. After taking a mini vacation in the country of Japan and admiring the rich culture and landscape of Japan, John and his father returned back to their city. John wanted to spend more time in Japan, but he knew he had loads of work waiting for him. Soon after coming back to New York, he started his daily life again as usual. He had been running around a lot and finally he could take a small breather. Even though he still had to draw every day, it wasn't so hectic as it was before. He hired some local and even Japanese artists to draw for him every day while he just directed the details for them and added the story to it. The 4th of August, 2006. It had been 3 years since he introduced Naruto to the world, and it was not astonishing that people loved it. What was surprising for John was that the story of Naruto became famous in USA too. John thought it was because of the fact that Disney was behind the production of Naruto. Even though it was produced in Japan, the main person behind the story was John himself. Naruto's story appealed a lot to the audience. With the story of a boy who was ostracized just because he had a powerful demon inside him to being a hero. His sacrifices, his love for his friends and the enemies he had to face made the story enriching. What surprised the people was that the line between good and bad became blurred, as Obito wanted to unify the world to bring eternal peace, and for doing that he was ready to sacrifice freedom. John even wondered at that point if he had given more ideas to Hydra, because Hydra and Obito's dreams were interrelated. Of course, the real reveal of Madara wasn't released, as Madara was John's favorite character. Even though Hydra would never pay attention to such flimsy animation which had no value in real world, but the logic behind the whole story had appealed to the high levels of Hydra. Alexander Pierce, after reading the whole report and understanding the gist of the story, had even thought of trying to recruit John, as the story was created by him. Finally, after a lot of thinking, he refused to recruit, as at the end of the day, the hero of the story was Naruto, not Obito. In these 3 years Disney produced stunning animated movies and the studio grew from few workers to hundreds of them. John finally hired Kevin and Bob for taking the helm of Disney and shared ideas with them about the future of the company. Disney, because of its popularity and meaningful plot, won Oscars almost every year. Some even advised him that he should try making real-life movies too, but John just refused their advances, as he already plans for real-life movies. In these few years John had grown up to a handsome young man with the right muscles at the right places. He finally left his childish look and slowly turned into a teenager. He took regular defense lessons, even though he knew that it won't matter at the end, as his powers would just explode, but he still took precautions. In these few years Google and Facebook rose exponentially. There were signs of these two companies being the leader in IT sector. Slowly and steadily these two companies were incorporated in the daily lives of normal people. People were surprised that the real person between these two giants was John Jameson. The media had whole discussion sessions on John and how he managed to acquire these two companies and even start new companies such as Twitter and Spotify. These ideas were unique and well ahead of the curve. The hosts and analysts even argued that John was on the level of Tony Stark when it came to unique ideas and creativity. Google had even announced that they were working on cheap smartphones that the normal people could use in their day-to-day life. All these accumulation over the years solidified John's position in the country, and even politicians approached him for cooperation and helping them in their campaigns, though he refused everybody politely. All his energy was to become strong enough to brush these politicians and military away, as he didn't want dirt in his hands. John's personal worth was valued at $40 billion. Even though he had a long way to go to reach the wealth of Tony Stark, but nobody would deny the fact that he might reach his level of wealth in future. Because John was still a teenager and Tony was already a grown man now. The media were eager to see the face-off between John and Tony to fuel their tabloids, but was surprised to see that they both never crossed each other's path. John used a majority of his wealth to make Daily Bugle more modern and a larger part for charity for old people and children from all over the world. This earned a more goodwill from a huge population and in turn helped John in propagating his works via Disney and thus earning more fan values. In fact, the rumors in the media had started that John would soon be given Nobel Peace Prize for his work for humanity and making the lives of ordinary people easier and better. Ding. Total fan value, 1.5 billion. Over the years he had collected lots of fan values and it was all thanks to his movies and the story of Naruto. What came as a joy to John was that every episodes of Naruto gave new fan values to him. After asking the system, he understood that every episode's fans value would get renewed in the next episode, and so every episode gave him a huge number of fan values. John was overjoyed because when he saw the required fan values for Naruto, he almost crumbled at that point. Ding. Fan value for bringing Naruto, Nine Tails mode, to life, 250 million. Fan value for the host to change to the character of Naruto, 125 million. Fan value for bringing Sasuke, Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan mode, to life, 250 million. Fan value for the host to change to the character of Sasuke, 125 million. Fan value required to bring the whole world of Naruto, 1.7 billion. The host can't bring all the characters as the story hasn't finished in this world. After seeing the fan values, he was really tempted to get Naruto and Sasuke out, but he knew better, it's not time yet. He wasn't sure if the Sorcerer Supreme will open the portal and come to throw him away, so before he was perfectly sure he wouldn't take any dangerous steps. John felt that he wasn't much behind in bringing the whole world of Naruto to life. And he could realize his dream soon, but before that he would have to make sufficient preparations. After much contemplation and thinking, he finally chose upon a movie which would help him in his daily life and help him against those who would try to spy upon him in future. Actually, even sometimes John felt he was being spied upon, but he could only passively ignore as he wasn't strong enough to fight against those people. He guessed that it would be S.H.I.E.L.D., but he wasn't sure. In fact, he feared that it was Hydra, but soon noticed that there was nothing unusual and he ignored it. Hydra probably wasn't ready yet to show its face, and he was not dangerous enough to bring the Winter Soldier out. And probably Zola didn't care about him, as his name would fall among the names in the Insight project. In addition, now there was S.H.I.E.L.D. looking from far, so Hydra didn't take any rash decision. Finally, he announced to the management of Disney that he would be directing a science fiction movie which wouldn't be an animation. This surprised the management, as they always felt that their boss never cared about real stories. This brought a smile on their faces because they always felt that they could expand more, but their boss never let them take this step. Bob was ecstatic when he heard this from John and arranged a meeting immediately. The morning of August the 5th, there was a meeting between John and the management of Disney for a new route to the company. This time only Val accompanied him, and Jameson didn't join as he felt his son was big enough now to take major decisions. Early morning he came to the studio and met with all the senior management, and they all settled down in the meeting room. Well, as I have informed earlier, the company will now start creating sci-fi and even real-life movies. But the story and the script of the movies should always go through me. Mostly the scripts will be proposed by me, and if any of the script writers hired by the company comes up with a reliable story, I will consider it, John said. Disney was always controlled solely by John, as he didn't want any public or outside interference. He had the last say in the studio, even though Bob looked after all the management issues, but the final say was still under the hands of John. I know that you all have been too eager for this, so here I have a story for you. And to inform you that Kevin will take a new role in the company as the head of a subsidiary of Disney. Disney will never interfere in the works of Kevin. Disney will only be responsible for providing funds and required team to execute his plans, John added. This new information surprised all, even Kevin. Though John once mentioned him vaguely that he had other plans for him, but Kevin didn't expect that he had such a grand plan for him. Having a subsidiary would give him total freedom and he could do anything he wanted. This was basically a dream job for him, from being a small producer to taking the helm of a subsidiary of Disney. Though he wasn't sure what plans John had for him, but he was looking forward to it. Bob didn't give much heed to this new command, as at the end of the day Disney would still be the boss. After that, Bob started looking through the script and it excited him instantly after reading the whole plot. Such ambitious project had never been taken before by any studio, and he was sure that if he could execute it perfectly, it would be a super hit movie. This movie would require a huge team of VFX artists, but Disney now had a huge command on many companies and had huge influence. It would be easier to hire good VFX artists. I know this movie doesn't have much potential like the other animated movies, but this could be considered baby steps. You can choose any director, but the final cut of the movie should pass through me. And yes, don't put too many explosion scenes on the movie. Try to make it little realistic but futuristic enough. I have already drawn all the characters and even some glimpses of the fight scenes, John said. And yes, finish the movie in 6 months, and that's non-negotiable, John added again. Bob and the others were now accustomed to his tight schedule and didn't complain. Sometimes Bob wondered if John was haunted by something, because he always gave them very tight schedule and it always felt John would run out of time. After the proper discussion on the movie and the whole process, everybody left except Kevin. John wanted to speak to him privately. Kevin, I would like to introduce to the story of a new theme. I would like you to be on a helm of a huge project, and this would include superheroes, John said to Kevin. Superheroes? Like Captain America? Kevin asked with raised eyebrows. Yes, like Captain America. These superheroes will form a team and defend humanity in the movie, just like Captain America. This is a huge project and it will span over many years. I hope you are mentally ready for it. John said. Of course, boss. I would be happy to take this project. But do you have a story? Kevin asked with excitement. Immediately John submitted a script to Kevin and said, take your time. Finish this project before the mid of 2008 and bring the director Christopher Nolan. I heard he is a great director. Sure, boss. After going through the story, he was little surprised because the starting of the story was almost exactly like Tony Stark, but the trajectory of his life took a total different turn and turned out to be a superhero. And what more surprised him was the time he got for this story. That is almost over a year, but he was delighted as he could change things according to the requirements. Kevin could see a huge potential with the script and was really looking forward to working on this. John smiled at him because he knew that soon everything will change and he was looking forward to it. Soon Disney started working on the project that John had given a timeline for. The VFX artists of this world were much better than the previous world. John guessed it probably was because of the influence of Tony Stark and Quentin Beck, as they were way ahead of their time when it comes to virtual projection. It might even have the hands of Fastus, one of the Eternals behind the advancement of VFX artists and virtual projection. John decided to follow the normal process of releasing trailers on various social media and YouTube. Yes, John had already incorporated YouTube with Google and even made sure there were proper administrators so that the future YouTube creators would have a solid platform. The trailer started with a high school boy going with his dad to buy a car, and then the shopkeeper mentions that it's not the man who chooses the car but it's the car who chooses the drivers. The boy then sat on a yellow Camaro and saw a weird sign in the middle of the steering wheel. Later the boy realized that the car could transform, and then the trailer showed a glimpse of the story and various fighting scenes. Yes, the movie John chose was Transformers for his debut in real filmmaking. Even though the later parts of the movie didn't fare good, but the first movie was a brilliant one. John banked on the fact that men have love for machines and robots, so this movie would appeal to all. As soon as the trailer was out, it went viral and people loved it. Disney announced their step in filmmaking apart from animation with a bang. The trailer went so viral that even Tony Stark commented on the comments section on YouTube that he would love to watch the movie and he was looking forward to it. This comment alone garnered more likes than the actual movie. John was surprised by this, but he gave a grin to it. He just got free publicity, so how could he complain? He just hoped that this wouldn't create any butterfly effect. That's all he cared about, as he didn't want to influence his destiny too much before he transforms into Iron Man. By January 2007, the movie was ready and it received a red carpet movie premiere on 2nd of February. John arrived with his family. It was a star-studded red carpet as many known stars of Hollywood attended. Soon reporters asked for an interview, which he happily obliged. Mr. John, is this movie your creative debut in the circle of movie making? Are there more movies that Disney has decided to release? One reporter asked. Yes, this could be said as the debut of Disney in movie making, and yes, there are other projects that we have lined up, but it will take time to come to life, John replied. Mr. John, will Disney stop making animated movies now? Another reporter asked. Of course not. Disney's love for animated movies and series will continue, and we also have corresponding projects, John replied with a smile. Then another reporter suddenly asked Mr. John, we have seen massive turnover with the series of Naruto, but why did you choose a foreign studio for its development? Do you feel that the animation level of USA can't reach the level of Japan? This question suddenly brought a wave of silence among the reporters, as this touched a very sensitive topic. John's eyebrows raised with the question, but he replied with a smile. Of course, the animation of USA is of very high level. Didn't we always make animated movie based on our country? I chose Japan for the development of Naruto because their studio was more suitable for these kind of projects, and Disney had too much of work with all the animation movies. Plus, the story of Naruto is not actually mine. It was a Japanese friend of mine who told me once about it, and I just brought the story to life. After this answer, the reporter couldn't refute his claims, as the life of John was pretty private and they knew almost nothing of his social life. Suddenly a sports Audi car arrived near the carpet end and a handsome man with goatee beard came out. It was Tony Stark. The appearance of Tony surprised John because, according to rumors, he never comes early in any event. John thought it was probably due to his love for machines and engineering. Soon the reporters who were flocking John went straight to Tony, as the life of Tony was more interesting than the bland and boring life of John. John in these few years didn't have any relationship with anyone, even though he had received many advances from almost everywhere. From school to charity events. Every young girl teenager would show goodwill to John. John was a handsome and rich guy, which appealed to many, but he politely refused, and so the reporters couldn't dig out any spicy story from him. In addition, he had too much influence on social media, so nobody dared to say anything bad on his life. The movie was pretty much a copy of the actual Transformers movie by Michael Bay, but with more realistic graphics and lesser explosions. Sometimes John wondered if in any universe Michael Bay was an incarnation of Deidara from Naruto, because only Michael and Deidara had so much love for explosions. Art is an explosion was the only slogan that both of them had. Of course he didn't make the movie too realistic, as that would be counterproductive. John just asked the VFX artists to make their faces more prominent and make lesser explosions. All the other things he kept the same as the previous movie. The audience loved the movie as it had everything. The story of a failed alien civilization and their struggle to survive in the universe while still infighting being prominent appealed to all. The alien stories are still very intriguing to the audience, as it always had been since a long time ago. It's just that this alien civilization was different. After thanking the audience for their support and attending the party at night, John returned with his family. It have been almost 6 years that John had come to this world, and for the first time he got excited as he was going to bring a living character to life tonight. Even though it would be taking a risk in front of the Sorcerer Supreme, but he still had to try. Ding. Fan value to bring the cube, 100 million. Fan value to bring Bumblebee to life / to be Bumblebee, 40 million / 20 million. Fan value to bring Optimus Prime to life / to be Optimus Prime, 60 million / 30 million. Fan value to bring Megatron to life / to be Megatron, 65 million / 32.5 million. Wait. System, I can bring even the cube to life. Wouldn't the life created by the cube would revolt like in the movie? John asked the system. Ding. Yes, since the world can be brought to life from movies and series, some specific objects can also be brought to life, such as this cube. The host can rest assured that the creatures will also follow the orders of the host. The system replied. John was overjoyed and he decided to bring the cube to life. I choose to buy the cube, John said, and immediately a cube of 1 meter carat 3 appeared in his hands. He was so excited that he almost jumped up. He opened his new Android mobile phone, which Google has recently released, and brought the mobile to touch the cube. Immediately a spark covered the whole mobile phone and slowly transformed to a small robot with blue eyes and 4 legs and 2 arms. It was almost the same as the mobile that transformed in the movie, but it looked more exquisite and refined. Master, what your orders? The mobile asked to John. John was looking at the mobile closely for a minute and then said, well, you the first of your kind, so I should name you. How about I call you Fix-It after the Minicons? Do you like the name? John asked. Thank you, Master, for naming me. I would be happy to serve you, Fix-It said with enthusiasm. John felt that the creatures brought to life should always have an identity and should never be nameless. Well, you can call me John instead of Master. I am not your lord. You are free to do whatever you want, but this world isn't the world of Cybertron, so there are restrictions. I hope you understand. You can even check all the information from internet, John said. Immediately Fix-It shook for a few seconds and its eyes shone bright. Fix-It went through tons of information and got a general overview of the world he was in. In fact, John could share his memories to all the characters that is brought to life, but John forgot about it because of his excitement after seeing a character. Thanks, John. I understand this world now. But I will choose to follow you, as that would be better for me, Fix-It said. John was happy after listening to this, as he hoped all characters have their own autonomy instead of following his orders always. John then suddenly remembered something and asked Fix-It, are there any spy cameras or microphones in the house? Can you scan the whole house and check it? Fixit's eyes suddenly became extremely bright and turned a total 360 degrees and then said, there is one small microphone at the living room at the corner of the top right shelf. It can probably listen to most of the surroundings, but its range can't reach to the room we are in right now. John, do you want me to disassemble it? Fixit asked with eagerness in his eyes and transformed its hands to sharp blades. No, Fixit, I would deal with this. You can change back to mobile and only transform when you are alone with me. If you have any information to pass, you can generate a text in your screen or call me like its normal function, John said hurriedly. After coming out of his room, John went straight to the family room and according to the directions, he went near the shelf and found a small microphone pinned to the wall. He took it out instantly and crushed it under his leg. Even though he figured out that it might be shielded, he didn't like being spied upon 24/7. I mean, who would even? After going back to his room, he went to sleep as he was tired after all the work. Since their wealth had been accumulating fast and steady, Jameson finally decided to spend on luxurious goods and services. The next day, John asked his father that he would like to buy a yellow Camaro like the one in the movie. Jameson was confused by this weird request as John could buy more luxurious cars with his money. But he didn't refuse as John asked for something on rare occasions from him. So they drove directly to a Chevrolet showroom and picked up a yellow Camaro. Because of all the advertisements from the trailers, Chevrolet's sales of yellow Camaro had gone up and even Chevrolet had a deal with Disney in this regard. After going through all the necessary credentials, John himself drove the car out of the showroom. He was going to bring Bumblebee to life and he needed an alias for this. This yellow Camaro was going to be perfect. After coming back home, Val and Jameson went back to their respective works. Even though Val didn't have to take care of John anymore, but Jameson let her work for them as she was an integral part of their family. After coming back to the garage, John immediately spent 40 million fan values to bring Bee to life. As soon as he commanded Bee to appear in front of him, there was yellow-colored humanoid robot of almost 5 meters. It was so tall that it had to crouch down so that it didn't hit the roof. Before bringing Bumblebee to life, John made sure there were no cameras or microphones nearby. If any information of Bee leaks out, it would cause a storm and even his empire wouldn't be able to help him stop this. John sighed after looking at Bee and immediately shared his memories and thoughts to Bee. Hello John, it's nice to meet you. Thanks for bringing me to this universe, Bee said. John didn't want to tell him about the system as that was his core secret and he wouldn't tell anyone even if it were his summons. Hello Bumblebee. Is it fine if I call you Bee? John asked. Sure, all my friends call me that. Now what do you want me to do? I can't just crouch down in this garage always. Right, Bee asked. No Bee, there is a yellow Camaro here which you can scan and transform to. Be sure to copy even the license plate number, John said. Bee scanned the Camaro and immediately changed into a yellow Camaro car. Now John had a new headache to deal with. He now has 2 Camaro cars and it would be impossible to explain the reason behind same license plates. He was thinking if he should tell him some of his secrets. Because in the future it would become more apparent. Well, till he asks me about the situation of my cars I would keep my mouth shut, John thought to himself. After seeing the transformed Bee, he entered inside the car and tied his seat belt as had a place to be. Bee, take me to 177A Bleecker Street, Greenwich Village, John said. Sure, Bee replied without any thought, and soon the car self-drove out of the garage. After driving for almost half an hour he finally arrived to the address. He looked at the huge building in front of him. The famous New York Sanctum. Even though he lost some fan values due to his extraction of Cube and Bumblebee, his fan values were soon going to reach the desired value of 1.7 billion to extract the world of Naruto. It was fine for B and fix it, but he wasn't sure if the Sorcerer Supreme would allow him to continue doing as he wished. Even though he had full trust on Naruto and Sasuke to fight against the Ancient One, but he didn't want any conflict. The generations of Ancient One guard Earth against the other dimensional invaders, and he didn't want to disrupt this cycle. After arriving at the door of the sanctum and calming himself a bit, he knocked. Soon the door opened by itself and Black Bald Man was standing a little far in front of the stairs. "Hello Master Drum, it's my honor to meet you," John said with politeness, but he was ready to spend fan values and take over a character if he was attacked. He wasn't sure how Master Drum would react. "Do I know you? And how do you know me? I don't remember ever seeing you. Who are you?" Master Drum asked John with some doubt. "Of course I know you, Master Drum, protector of New York Sanctum. I am John Jameson. I am here to ask an audience from the Ancient One." John replied. "John Jameson. Now I remember. Aren't you the famous movie creator and a business tycoon? How come you are here? How do you know of us?" "I have never seen anyone from your family practicing magic," Drum said with astonishment and little on guard, as he felt this John wasn't simple and he might be an otherworldly being in the guise of human. He was ready to conjure rings of Ragador in order to fight. "Well, my circumstances are little special and I have always known the existence of Kamatage and its importance. Don't worry Master Drum, I haven't come with any malice and I just want to ask the Ancient One about something," John said calmly, even though he was sweating in his heart. He didn't want to fight Master Drum, especially in their own home turf. Who knows what kind of spells are attached to the sanctum? Before Drum could reply to it, suddenly a voice came from behind which said, "It's fine Master Drum. He really didn't come with malice and can actually be considered an ally. You can go back. I will take him to Kamatage." A bald woman came from behind the stairs and walked towards them. John was excited and nervous to see her. He always felt nervous when he sees these characters which looked exactly the same as in the movies. He was always in awe when he met these characters, be it Tony Stark or the Ancient One standing right in front of him. He couldn't even open his mouth to speak to her and he stood rooted in his spot. "What happened, kid? Didn't you want to see me? Why are you silent now?" the Ancient One asked John with a faint smile. "Ah. Sorry, I was just a little lost in my thoughts," John said shyly. "All right. Come with me. We have lots to discuss," the Ancient One said. After that the Ancient One led John to upstairs and to the doors which led to Kamatage. As soon as they passed the door he saw the famous Eye of Agamotto, or in other sense, the time gem upon a raised stone block. He looked at it for few seconds but turned his eyes. He knew that Infinity Stones were really powerful, but he believed that if he was given enough time he could ignore the power of Infinity Stones. The Ancient One saw that his eyes were on the Eye of Agamotto but turned away soon. John's eyes reflected confidence which raised a smile in the mouth of the Ancient One. After coming in the courtyard while following the Ancient One, he saw many people practicing magic even though it was night due to time difference. It was chilly outside and the Himalayas being close by. He was envious of them but didn't say anything and just followed the Ancient One. After entering the hall, the Ancient One started to brew tea and John sat down in front of her to finish making her tea. After few minutes 2 pots of tea was ready and gave 1 cup to John. John took a sip and felt refreshed instantly. So you are finally here. I thought you would never come, the Ancient One said. Well, I was scared that you would banish me away from this world, John replied shyly, as he couldn't say that he was scared of her, but he has a degree of defense in his body. The Ancient One could probably guess it, but she didn't expose him. So have you seen my future? John asked. The Ancient One smiled and said, yes and no. I can never see your future. It seems like there is some powerful entity preventing me to see your future, but I can see your influence on various people, so I know you have no malice to earth. So I don't really care about what you do as long as the defenses against the other dimensions are intact. Of course. I won't let anything bad happen to Earth, as it's my home too. But if someone provokes me or my family, I won't mind sending them to eternal damnation, John said while taking a sip. The Ancient One just smiled and didn't say anything to this point. I have a doubt. Can you help me clarify? John asked with curiosity. Sure. Ask away. Did you know of Tiamat? John asked. The Ancient One raised her eyebrows when she heard the question. Actually, she guessed wrong from beginning. She thought that John's knowledge of future came from the powerful entity behind him who brought him to this world. When John got transmigrated here, the Ancient One felt a change in defenses of Earth. She checked multiple times to see if there was anybody who invaded, but didn't find anyone. So she had to use the Eye of Agamotto to look into the future, only to see that the future has changed by a huge mile. She checked all the possible timelines and realized that the main person behind this change was John. Even though on possible timelines John never turned against Earth, she still had to check on John herself as to judge his character. So the Ancient One started spying on him from the mirror dimension, and after few days of spying she realized that John was a decent guy from heart, loved his family and had very interesting ideas. So after that she stopped paying attention to him. She didn't know that all the knowledge of future came from movies in his previous life, and the powerful entity behind him was not even a living thing. It was just an overpowered system. Yes, I do know of Tiamat. But that is the headache of Strange. Not mine, the Ancient One said with a mocking smile, as if she was having a laugh on the future problems of Doctor Strange. John was dumbfounded by seeing this side of the Ancient One. He wondered if all the Sorcerer Supreme has such weird character. Well, after leaving his thoughts in the back of his head, he sat straight and came to the topic for which he really came all the way from home. In a few months many otherworldly powerful beings will enter Earth. They are friends of mine. I hope you won't stop me. John was serious. He was scared that she would reject, but she gave a reply he never expected. You can bring anyone you want from other universes. It won't really matter to me as long as they don't hurt the defenses of Earth and the sanctums, the Ancient One said with a smile. That is, of course. I can even ask my friends to help you guard the sanctum if you allow us. John added instantly. Well, then I will thank you in advance for your help, she said with a smile. Well, I can see you brought two beings with you. One is on the parking spot of New York and the other in your pocket. Right. She added. As soon as she said that, the mobile in his pocket vibrated continuously. It was probably asking for permission to transform and attack her, because Fixit felt that the woman was dangerous by her words. John probably guessed what Fixit wanted to do, so he brought the mobile out of his pocket and said, Fixit, you can transform and show yourself. As soon as he said that, Fixit transformed and immediately started shooting from his transformed, and even launched a small RPG from its back towards the Ancient One. John didn't even get the time to stop Fix-It, but he was relieved to see that she already put up the rings of Ragador in front of her. Even though the bullets and the missile won't really hurt too much to a human being, but it still might cause burns and pain. And if used in vulnerable places, these bullets and missiles could even prove to be fatal. Wow, these beings look so cute. Its name is Fix-It. That's a nice name. Are they from the planet Cybertron? She asked with curiosity. John was dumbfounded. How come you know of Cybertron? The movie hasn't even released globally. You even watch movies made by me? John asked with huge eyes. Of course, I went to LA and watched the movie from Mirror Dimension. I have to say that I loved the idea of the movie. That car outside is the famous Bumblebee. Right. Looks powerful. I could feel the power from outside. All these years I watched some of your movies and works. I have to say that having a knowledge of so many universes is amazing, she said. John felt guilt and shy for deceiving her, as there were no such universes. He was just a guy with a small trick, or at least that is what he thought. He wasn't sure if Naruto universe existed or not. He didn't give much thought to it anymore. Yes, this is Fix-It, and the car outside is indeed B. Fix-It say sorry to her. She is a friend of mine and our ally, John said to Fix-It. Fix-It looked back and forth to the Ancient One and John, and he couldn't understand why he pointed this midge as an ally, but Fix-It didn't argue on this. I am sorry for firing upon you, Midge. Hope you won't take this to heart. It's fine. I can see that you want to protect John. You can continue to do so, she said. That's it, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. And also tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendation. Thanks for watching.